That night was supposed to be normal. Just me, my kid brother, and a quiet house while our parents ran errands. But normal is a liar. Because what started as a routine evening turned into the kind of night that sticks to your memory like a song you can't stop replaying. I learned things about my brother, about our family, and about myself. Things I didn't even know I needed to learn. It was a night of laughter that came out of fear. A night of fear that strangely felt safe. A night of small moments that somehow became big. Greetings, dear listeners. Before I begin telling this complicated story of my life, I ask you to support our channel. Subscribe, leave a like, and write in the comments which city you are listening from. This is very important for us. And now, enjoy listening. The first thing I remember about that night was the silence. Not the peaceful silence you get on a lazy Sunday morning. Not the kind that feels warm. This silence was heavy. The type that sits in the corners and watches you. The type that makes a house feel bigger than it really is. Our parents had left earlier than usual. Late dinner and a movie, my mom said, like it was no big deal. Like leaving your kids alone in a house full of creaky floors and old memories was just casual. My brother Malik was 12 then. I was 19. And yes, I'd babysat him plenty of times. But something about this night felt different in my bones. Like the air itself was bracing for impact. Malik was on the living room floor, legs crossed, locked into a video game like his life depended on it. He kept muttering under his breath at the screen, doing that intense little kid thing where they act like they're not scared of anything, even when they are. I slumped into the armchair, shoes kicked off, exhausted from work and school. My body wanted rest, but my mind was pacing like it had somewhere to go. Then Malik said without looking up, "Leah." The way he said my name made my stomach tighten. He didn't say it like, "Big sis, can I have snacks?" He said it like he was about to confess a crime. "What?" I asked, trying to sound normal. "Do you think something weird could happen tonight?" I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. Weird how? Like a ghost? Or the end of the world? He shrugged, still staring at the game. But his shoulders were stiff. Just weird. Like stuff could get out of hand. My smile stayed on my face, but it didn't reach my chest. 'Cause the truth is, felt it too. That little electric tension. Like the house was holding its breath. I leaned forward. "Malik, we're literally just home alone. That's the whole vibe. That's the definition of weird." That should have been enough. But he paused his game. Actually paused it. Then he looked up at me, eyes wide and too serious for 12. "Promise me you won't freak out if something happens." I stared at him, trying to figure out if he was joking. He wasn't. There was something almost pleading in his face. Like he already knew tonight was going to unfold in a way neither of us could rewind. I swallowed. "Nothing's going to happen. I promise." But even as I said it, the air felt like it didn't believe me. We spent the first hour doing normal things. Talking about random shows, laughing at stupid memes on his phone, arguing over whether pineapple belongs on pizza. Malik tried to act casual, but he kept glancing toward the windows like he expected to see eyes staring back. The moonlight that came through the blinds was weird too, striped and uneven, cutting across the carpet like prison bars. Shadows looked longer than they should have. The house felt like it had more corners than usual. At one point Malik stood up. "I'm going to get snacks." "Okay," I said, watching him walk into the kitchen. And that's when I noticed something that made me pause. He moved differently. Not like a little kid rushing for chips. More careful. More alert. Like he was listening to the house the same way I was. Like he was in on the secret that something felt off. He came back holding a bag of chips and 2 sodas, then stood in the doorway like he wasn't sure if he wanted to enter the room. "Leah," he said quietly, "do you ever feel like we're not ready for something but it's happening anyway?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" He sighed, this deep, tired sigh that didn't belong to a 12-year-old. Like, life changes fast. And you don't even get a warning. One day you're fine, next day you're not. For a second I just stared at him. 'Cause what do you even say to that? What do you say when a kid says something that sounds like an adult's thoughts wearing a child's voice? I wanted to wrap him in reassurance. Tell him everything would be fine. Tell him life is predictable if you try hard enough. But I couldn't lie. So I just nodded. Yeah, I get it. And I meant it. Because even at 19, I didn't feel like I had the manual to life either. I was just doing what I could with what I had like everyone else. The night deepened. The air got heavier, thicker. The wind outside started whispering through the trees, the kind of sound that makes you imagine footsteps where there aren't any. At some point, without even thinking about it, we both ended up closer to the center of the living room, like two people unconsciously moving away from the corners. We sat on the carpet, knees almost touching, snacks between us, the paused game forgotten. There was no fear exactly, but there was anticipation. Like the house was waiting. Then it happened. A sound so small I almost convinced myself it wasn't real. Faint creak. From upstairs. Malik froze. Froze too. Another sound followed. Soft, dragging like someone shifting weight on floorboards. My heart started pounding immediately. Not the cute oh my gosh kind. The real kind. The kind you feel in your throat. Malik's hand brushed mine. Hesitant, like he didn't want to admit he needed comfort, but his body moved before his pride could stop it. Did you hear that? He whispered. I did, I said, forcing calm into my voice like it was armor. Stay here. I'll check it out. I stood up, but my confidence didn't feel like confidence. Felt like borrowed courage. Like I was acting out a role I wasn't fully prepared for. The staircase looked different at night. Bigger. Deeper. Like it was leading into a different house altogether. Be careful, Malik called softly behind me. I will, I said. My words sounded fragile. Upstairs, the hallway was dim, lit only by moonlight slipping through blinds. Dust floated in the air like tiny ghosts doing slow dances. The smell of laundry detergent and old books was there, but even that felt different, like the house was trying to disguise itself as normal. It moved slowly, each step deliberate. Floorboards complained under my weight. Then I heard it again. Rustle. Not in the hall. In the guest room. That room was at the end of the hallway. The storage room where our parents kept boxes of old photos, old clothes, old memories they said they'd sort one day. My mind started sprinting. Intruder. Animal. Someone who knew our parents were gone. I reached for the doorknob. And that's when I realized Malik was behind me. I turned my head slightly and there he was, blanket clutched in both hands like it was a shield, eyes wide but steady. I'm not leaving you, he said. No drama. No whining. Just that quiet determination. In that moment something shifted inside me. Because he wasn't just my little brother standing behind me. He was choosing courage. I exhaled slowly. Okay, I whispered. Then we do it together. We pushed the door open. It creaked loud enough to feel like it echoed through the whole house. The room was still. Boxes stacked everywhere. Curtains moving slightly from a crack in the window. The kind of scene that feels normal until you realize your heart is still racing. Then I saw movement. A small trembling shape tucked behind the boxes in the corner. Malik sucked in a breath. I stepped forward fast, ready to fight whatever I had to fight. And then the monster bolted. It was our cat, Pepper. His wide tail puffed. Furious like we'd personally offended her by existing. She squeezed past me and flew down the hallway like she was late for a meeting. For 1 second Malik stared. Then he whispered, "That's it." And I let out the ugliest laugh. Half relief, half embarrassment. "Yeah," I breathed. "That's it." Malik exhaled behind me, shoulders dropping like he'd been carrying a backpack full of bricks. "Just the cat," he muttered. We both chuckled, but the tension didn't fully leave. Because even though it was just the cat, the house still felt like it was hiding something. We decided to check the rest of the upstairs anyway. Closet doors. Bathroom. Our parents' room. The hallway nook where the light switch always flickered. And the weird thing was, the more we moved together, the less scared I felt. Like fear couldn't survive as well when you weren't alone. Back downstairs, we ended up in the kitchen, the moonlight spilling across the counters like silver paint. Malik stood by the fridge, staring at nothing for a second. "Leah," he said quietly, "do you ever think it's weird how fast stuff changes?" "All the time," I admitted. He nodded like he'd expected that answer. We stood there in silence, this time not scary, just thoughtful. And I realized something that surprised me. That night wasn't just making me notice the house. It was making me notice him. The way he kept steady even when he was scared. The way he didn't panic. The way he watched and listened like he already understood something about life that I was still learning. Then came the knock. Soft at first. Polite. But unmistakable. Malik's hand found mine again and squeezed. This time I didn't pretend I didn't need that too. The knock came again, stronger. My stomach dropped like an elevator. "Who could that be?" Malik whispered. His voice shook, but not purely from fear. There was something else in it. Excitement. Like the night had been building toward this moment, and he could feel the story reaching its turning point. "I don't know," I said. And then I said the only thing that felt true. "But we'll find out together." We walked to the door side by side, like two teammates approaching the final boss. The porch light glowed weakly through the peephole. I opened the door slowly. And there she was. An older woman wrapped in a thick sweater, face lined with age, eyes sharp but kind. She looked like she belonged to the neighborhood the way old trees belong to the earth. "Leah." "Malik?" she asked, voice calm. "I'm sorry to come by this late, but your mom asked me to check on you. She said she'd be home soon, but she didn't want you two alone without someone nearby." Took me a second to breathe again. "Mrs. Doyle," I said, relief flooding me so fast my knees almost went soft. "Thank you." She stepped inside, warm presence filling the space like a lamp turning on. Malik stayed close, curious now, not tense. Mrs. Doyle looked at him and smiled. "So you're Malik. I've heard plenty." He blinked a little shy. "All good things, I hope." He chuckled. "Your mom would say yes. Your dad would pretend not to be proud. But he is." We guided her into the living room. She settled into the chair like she'd done it 100 times before, and just having another adult in the house made everything feel less dramatic. She chatted about normal stuff. Cool. Neighbors. Weather. The kind of conversation that stitches the world back together. And as she talked, I realized something that hit me quietly. That tension earlier. It wasn't just about noises. It was about being alone together in a way we hadn't been in a long time. Not distracted by parents, not pulled apart by schedules. Just us. Seeing each other clearly. Malik kept glancing at me during Mrs. Doyle's stories, like we had this secret pact. We survived the night so far. Then the wind picked up again. The windows rattled. And somewhere outside, backyard side, there was a dull thud. Like something heavy shifting against something else. Malik stiffened. I stiffened too. "Leah," he whispered. "I hear it," I said. Mrs. Doyle didn't panic. She simply turned her head, listening. Could be a branch. Wind's rough tonight. But Malik was already moving toward the window. And this time his voice was steady when he said, "Do you want me to check?" I stared at him. 'Cause, who was this kid? 12 years old and offering to walk into the dark like a grown man. I shook my head gently. "No, we're together. That's enough." And I meant it. We stood by the window, peering into the backyard. Shadows stretched long. The swing set moved slightly in the wind, creaking like it wanted attention. Nothing else. No intruder. No monster. Just a night trying its best to feel bigger than it really was. Mrs. Doyle stayed a little longer, then left once she got a text from my mom saying they were on their way. The house went quiet again after she left. But it wasn't the same kind of quiet as before. Now it felt protective, like we'd claimed the space back. By midnight, Malik and I were sitting on the living room floor, backs against the couch, moonlight pouring over us like a soft blanket. We didn't talk for a while. Then Malik leaned his head slightly toward mine and whispered, "I'm glad it was us tonight." I turned to him. "What do you mean?" Being alone, he said. It was scary. But I'm glad it was with you. My throat tightened. I wanted to tell him I'd been scared too. That I didn't always feel like the brave older sister. That sometimes I was just a tired 19-year-old trying to pretend I knew what I was doing. So instead I said the truth. I'm glad too, I whispered. We make a good team. He smiled, small and real. Yeah. Weird but good. That's when I got the idea. Let's build a fort, I said. He stared at me like I just suggested we rob a bank. A fort. Like blankets. Exactly like blankets. He scoffed at first, but it was fake tough guy energy. 2 minutes later he was dragging chairs across the carpet like he was an architect on a deadline. We built the most ridiculous blanket fort in history. Chairs at weird angles. Blankets draped like crooked walls. Pillows stacked like we were preparing for war. It was silly. And it was perfect. Inside that fort, with 2 mugs of cocoa we borrowed from the kitchen, Malik looked at me with half-lidded eyes and said softly, I don't think I'd be as brave if it wasn't for you. My chest swelled. And because this night had apparently decided to make me emotional, I said, I don't think I'd be as brave without you either. He blinked. Me? Yeah, I said. You kept me grounded. You didn't freak out. You didn't run. You stayed. He looked down at his cocoa like he was trying not to smile too hard. Good. I like being useful. I laughed quietly. You're not just useful. You. And that's enough. When our parents finally came home, they walked in talking casually like the world hadn't almost ended for us. They found us asleep in the blanket fort. My mom laughed softly. My dad shook his head like he was annoyed, but I saw his mouth twitch like he wanted to smile. They didn't ask many questions. And we didn't offer much. Some things belonged to the people who lived them. Later, lying in bed, I listened to the house breathing in its familiar rhythm. And I realized what that night taught me. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to move anyway. And love, real love, the kind that exists in families, the kind that builds you quietly over years. It turns ordinary nights into unforgettable ones. Malik and I didn't remember that night because of the creaks or the knocks or the shadows. We remembered it because we saw each other clearly. And once you really see someone, once you realize what they're made of, you don't unsee it. When I finally closed my eyes, I knew something for sure. No matter what life threw at us next, we'd face it the same way we faced that night. Together. With courage. With trust. And when we could, with laughter. And that is something I will carry with me forever.